How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. So, free agency, it's nearing a close, we should say. Obviously, we see some guys hit waivers, some guys still floating around out there, a couple names floating around out there with the Bengals. But for the most part, we're seeing things kind of wrap up here with the big moves. And I think it's time we dissect what the Cincinnati Bengals did this offseason. And I tell you what, I mean, we have to keep one thing in mind with this Bengals team. Much like every team that desires to be a serious Super Bowl contender year in and year out, is you can't afford to throw money at any and everybody in free agency. And typically, it's those really good teams that don't throw money at every player in free agency. Usually, you don't see the Chiefs win free agency, the Patriots win free agency in the past. It's usually teams like the Browns or the Bears or the Panthers. Teams are seeing sign these big ticket items. The Browns not so much as they used to, but still seeing the Bears, the Panthers, these teams throwing money at the Commanders, throwing money at players. And typically that does not work out to go so well. I mean, just look at Hayden Hurst. Look at CJ Uzomah when the Jets did, throwing money at CJ. Guys being released, dead caps sitting all over the place now because of the releases of these guys. So it is important, and it's something the Browns and something the Brown family, not the Browns, have done very well. The Bengals have done very well throughout the Joe Burrow tenure, because you can't afford, obviously, to pay Jamar Chase top receiver money, to pay Joe Burrow top quarterback money, and to keep this team as formidable as possible and try to keep it a contender if you got all this dead cap sitting on the sidelines and you're paying these guys getting injured or not playing up to their contract. So the Bengals have done in the past, and they continue to do even this year, a very good job of being methodical, being particular and articulate, and making sure they sign the proper players that, one, A, they feel like, you can be confident they're going to stay on this team for a while, they're not going to get hurt, or B, they're not going to be tied down too long. And again, the injuries that are ever so important. And that's where we're going to start out at the defense here. Talk about what the Bengals have done in the defensive side of the football, and talk a little bit about injuries regarding a guy by the name of DJ Reader. DJ Reader, a tough one to lose if you're the Bengals. I tell you what, it stung every single time you watched him walk out the door. And the more you let it sink in, the more you let it simmer down a little bit, the more you really think about it and say, hey, DJ Reader, 3 to 4 years he was in Cincinnati, he was injured 3 or more games on the season. He had a couple of different times he was injured with the same injury. He's out for, last season-ending injury. And sometimes, worry about that when a guy is coming in on his 3rd year in his contract. He's going to be entering the 30s, and you wonder, what is he going to do if you were to sign him to, again, that $14, $15 million deal? Maybe it's not an overpay for him, but you do worry about the injuries and say, how much are we going to get out of him? And when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals defense last season, DJ Reader, absolute stud, a game changer ever since being on this team. But even when DJ Reader is in that lineup last season, the Bengals could not stop the run. Might have been a little bit better, but they were struggling to stop the run all year. That was what DJ Reader was there for. So if they couldn't stop the run of DJ Reader, was say you were worried about the injuries, he is getting older. You do worry about that a little bit and say, hey, maybe we got to try something different on defense. Obviously, DJ Reader, a big cog, something you can't replace, and you want to keep this guy at all costs. I mean, anybody can get hurt, and you say, if we keep DJ Reader, we keep him, just for what he's done for this organization and the way he's played some ball. But, when you look at it in that high perspective, you kind of see where the Bengals said, you know what, let's take our chances on a guy like Sheldon Rankins instead, who we feel a little bit better about his ability to pressure the quarterback, feel a little bit better about his ability to stay healthy, and we'll figure out the run game somewhere else. You bring in Geno Stone, something that was a problem last season for the Bengals. Their secondary was giving up the big plays. Something we ain't seen in a long time out of a Bengals defense was how many big chunk plays he was giving up last season. It was scary. It was, all year it felt like, sometimes the Bengals are going to turn around and play some good ball. And they did. Even when Joe Burrow went down, they still turned around and played some good ball, finished above 500. The problem was, it always kind of felt like, hey, if the defense keeps playing like this, the Bengals cannot win a Super Bowl because they're just giving up too many big plays. So you go out and you pluck a safety off the Ravens, one of the best pass defenses in the league. You pluck a guy off that is the Ravens, who is one of the premier safeties when it comes to stopping the pass, holding QBs to a QB rating under 60 on a season. Very, very impressive. A big addition to this secondary. You make sure, just in case Jordan Battle or Dax Hill, one of them go down, one of them doesn't play. Dax Hill, you're concerned about his future. Maybe Dax moves to the nickel. Now you have his replacement. Speaking of injury, if they got plans for Dax Hill somewhere else on this team, if something were to happen to Stone, something were to happen to Jordan Battle, you bring in Von Bell on a cheap contract, practically for free. Best you can do for this guy. You bring in a familiar face. You bring in a veteran who can help a team who has been on this team when it was a really good, a top 5, a top 10, consistently stopping the run defense. You bring this guy back in who can provide some knowledge for these young guys. And again, you hope it never happens, but if an injury were to happen and pop up, you know this guy instantly can plug and play and you don't feel like you lose a beat on defense. So we'll see with the Von Bell side. That's going to be, that's going to be the most interesting one. What kind of mentor role is Von Bell going to play? What kind of effect is Von Bell going to have on his defense? Because we know he's getting older. I don't think anybody really you wouldn't expect him to be out there over 50% of the snaps during the season just because of the two young safeties you do have, because of Stone coming in on the contract that he did. But Von Bell can be a huge asset for this defense. Overall, looking at what the Bengals did on defense, they definitely improved at stopping the run on this one. Or not stopping the run, but stopping the pass. I think they're looking and say, hey, this is a pass-heavy league. We got to get more pressure on the quarterback, so they're better in that department. You figure Miles Murphy's going to be better next year than he was this year, and he was already improving. You already got Trey Hendrickson. Now you bring in a guy that is better and more dominant in the middle to pressure the quarterback, a position that's become more and more important, we've noticed over the years, have somebody in the quarterback's face pressuring him over the center, over the guard position there. So very big bringing in Sheldon Rankins, and they definitely did, I would say, improved at stopping the pass. Now the problem becomes they did not, I don't believe, in my opinion, stop to improve the run. A run defense that was not good last season. Not good at all. And it does not matter how good your pass rush is. I mean, it can, I guess, if you're 2020 Joe Burrow, where you can't even drop back and set your feet without getting killed. But if the pass rush is like that, all right, you're all right. But for the Bengals, don't look like they got that kind of pass rush in hand. They might have a middle of the league pass rush, and that's all right. That'll work, right? That's better than bottom of the league and premier top of the league. You would figure 10 to 15 range they could finish in sacks. That being said, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2. I don't think that pass rush is going to be that effective. And the problem is now you're depending on your team to stay in coverage longer, or they don't even have to stay in coverage longer. And that's the big story here. And the reason it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4 is because they didn't improve the run game. If they can run the ball for 4 yards per carry, 5 yards per carry on 1st and 2nd down every time consistently, it makes it very easy to pass on a football team. But much more, we shouldn't say very easy. It's still difficult to pick up first downs in the NFL, but it makes it much more likely than forcing those 3rd and 6s, those 3rd and 7s, those 3rd and 8s. So from that regard, I am really concerned still. You have to improve the run game. And again, we don't know what Lou Anarumo is going to do. I mean, we've realized what this team's coming with defensively in the past and said, what are we going to do here? And Lou comes in here, works his magic, does what Lou does, and Bengals are cooking on defense. And ultimately, that's kind of been the MO of Lou. It's like, hey, we'll put piece on these players. Like, what's going to happen with this? And Lou figures it out. And at the end of the day, it's always been a bend but don't break type of style defense for the Bengals. They just get that, lock it down in the red zone, hold them to field goals. Again, something the Bengals have done really well in the Lou Anarumo era. It's just what you worry about is when they're not stopping the run and teams can wear you down on the ground. It is a pass-heavy league. It's a pass-happy league. A lot of quarterbacks, that's how they want to win football games. The problem becomes, we just seen the Ravens in the conference championship game. We just seen the 49ers in the Super Bowl. We just seen the Lions in the conference championship game. Teams that will pound the rock all day, every day, effectively. The Browns, the Ravens, when they beat the snot out of the Bengals every year, or when they dominate the Bengals every year, it's in the trenches. And the reason they have struggled so mightily to beat the Browns, to beat the Ravens, is because they haven't been able to get pressure on the quarterback and they haven't been able to stop the run game. So you get to the second half, the second you fall behind a little bit, if they can just run the football all game, it's over. And I don't know if they've done anything to fix that. And now you talk about the Steelers, who obviously, as we know, if they can bring in some running backs now, bolster up the offensive line, right now, it don't feel like a concern if they really think Russell Wilson's going to be a starting quarterback. If Justin Fields is, though, you might have a problem. And the last thing you're going to do is go 1-5 or 0-6 in a division. But again, right now, the way you're matching up with them, that's what looks like it could happen. You have to have a way to stop the run in this league, which, as much as it's going away, it feels like it's very much in focus still. So I'm worried about that. As far as the defense is concerned, as far as free agency, the defensive position is concerned, I'm giving about a C+. Now, moving to the offensive side of the football, I really like what they did here. I like what they did offensively a lot. You bring in Zach Moss, a guy that's really good in between the tackles, a guy that can pick up the short yardage. I know he's a smaller back, but he is kind of a smaller power back, a guy that can work between the tackles, get the yards that you need him to get. You complement that with Chase Brown, a guy that, you know what, he's shown some good vision on this Cincinnati Bengals team that can work between the tackles as well, but he can work outside. He's got the speed, one of the fastest running backs in the league. The ability to catch the ball in the backfield, the ability to be explosive. That 1-2 punch the Bengals have not had in such a long time. It's been what, Geo? I want to say Geo Hill. Was Mixon Geo? I'm trying to think. Geo Mixon Hill. Geo Hill. You know, it's been a long time, to say the very least, since the Bengals have had that 1-2 punch, and it's a very, very effective one to have in this football league. And I'm all for it. It's a cheaper option. I feel like they upgraded the running back position. I feel like you got a chance to give Chase Brown an opportunity to flourish as well, because you did bring in Zach Moss, cheaper deal. It's like he's here. Zach Moss been a backup for a long time. He's going to be okay in that role. If Chase Brown goes off and you say, okay, now we didn't blanket Chase Brown. He's got a chance to flourish in this offense. If that happens. If not, you still feel good about Chase Brown or Zach Moss's ability to tote the load if he has to. You go over to the tight end position. Bengals. There's nothing else you can say. It's what the Bengals do at this point. They bring in these tight ends on these cheap deals, these short contracts, give them a chance to prove themselves. And Mike Gesicki is a guy that doesn't need to prove himself. He needs a prove it again kind of year. He's done it in the past. He's been a very, very good pass catching tight end in the past. A little struggle in stopping run, but dominant. I mean, he could be the best pass catcher Joe Burrow's had yet at tight end. And this is a system that, it doesn't require a dominant tight end. It just requires an okay tight end, a solid tight end that can make some plays, make some catches, get open down the seam, run out in a flat. You know, that's what this tight end position does for the Bengals. And once again, at least as long as T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are both on his team, or as long as you have that kind of style of wide receiver, you have two good wide receivers, you can work with that. And you can work with that in a big way. And I love the addition of Gesicki. I think the ceiling is ridiculously high for this guy. Big pickup. Then you bring in Trent Brown, who are a former Pro Bowler, one of the best left tackles in the league, really, in recent memory here. Because, again, we just bring it up, his pressure, 16, 17 pressures last year. You compare that to Jonah Williams' 41, Orlando Brown's 59, it's not even close. And he did it on a team where there wasn't a good quarterback, so you know he's been doing it very, very well. It's not just, he's not just doing it under Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow gets rid of that rock in two seconds. He's been doing it on a team where, he's holding on that football long. They're going to bring some pressure in their face, bring it in his face, rattle him a little bit. And this guy's been dominant. And you bring him in, potentially the biggest free agent pickup for the Bengals in a long time. I guess we can't say that because Trey Hendrickson. I take it back. Biggest free agent pickup on the offensive side of the football in a long time. Definitely in the offensive line, if he can live up to those abilities. I love the pickup here. Could see a big, again, instant improvement. And the second Joe Burrow gets more time, you're going to forget about anything else around you. I tell you what, I can promise you that. Big pickup. Overall, looking at it, I mean, I'm probably going to give this offensive grade an A. Because they did what they had to do. Again, you got to consider how important it is to stand to the cap, not get committed too long-term to players, because you do have guys to sign, you do have guys you want to retain, and you just don't want to get caught in that situation where you see other teams like the Chargers releasing and waiving, getting rid of all these players just because they're so far over the cap. Bengals sticking to what's worked with them or worked for them too as well. It's like, hey, you don't need this Brock Bowers. You don't need this expensive tight end because you haven't needed to get the Super Bowl before. You didn't need to get the AFC Championship game before. This is a team that knows what they're doing offensively. They have a schema. They know what works. You bring in a few extra pieces. You bring in some fresh minds, and you bring in a better offensive line, and they're going to cook. They're going to be all right. Overall, I think you look at this Bengals free agency and you say, consider you put them together. I'd probably give him about a B, maybe a B minus. Again, you got to consider ever so important the money they're working with, how particular the needs they had, and how much money they had to spend. You couldn't just throw money at every position and fill it. So I'm gonna give him about a B, I think. Love y'all's thoughts. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.